Damien looked at Duke Schuetz. Duke Schuetz said to Damien that he would look forward to his training after they returned to the duchy. Damien asked Duke Schuetz why he wanted to take him and Ellie with him. Duke Schuetz didn't say anything and just looked at him. He said he's not taking Damien with him, he is just returning him to the place where he belongs. He said Damien would understand it soon enough. He will understand everything. But for that time, he was just a feral animal. However, if he returned to the right place where Damien belonged, he might be able to see the world from a different perspective and save people with his power and strength. At the very least, he will be able to protect the people he seeks. Damien punched the tree. He was thinking that adults are scarier and harder to trust than children. He didn't want to go with Duke Schuetz. He was thinking that Duke Schuetz might be like one of his masters, and if he became like one of his masters, then Ellie might be in danger because he was too weak to protect her. Damien remembered something earlier about Ellie's words. She said to Damien that he has to return to the place where he always belonged, and Damien asked her whether she'd come with him or not, and she said she'd be there whenever he needed her. Damien punched the tree again and said not to force Ellie to work for him. He can't force her to work. Upon that, Duke Schuetz asked why he would make a small child work for him. Damien doesn't have to put these thoughts in his head, Duke Schuetz said. Damien said he'd make him pay if he ever forced her to work. He turned around and kept walking. Duke Schuetz said he's just like his father. He doesn't need a mana stone to prove his identity. Duke Schuetz said Duke Kleider was so soft and affectionate to his wife, but as he brought himself toward other people, his presence changed immediately. Damien's every action showed that he was the blood of Duke Kleider through and through. The carriage started running through the deep woods. Ellie was in bed. She woke up and said, "When did I fall asleep suddenly?" Damien was there as well with her and slept on her shoulder. She was glad to see Damien feeling better. A crow passed by the carriage, and Ellie got spooked. She looked at the crow and started thinking that they were on the battlefield, but this scene was even worse than she could have imagined. She thought it was true that this territory was crawling with monsters. She suddenly put on a brave face, but as she did, a crow came and started hitting the carriage glass. She got spooked and looked away, thinking maybe that crow understood whatever she said because that crow was definitely looking at her. But again, that's not possible. They arrived at the mansion. They got out of the carriage and looked at the mansion. It was big and fabulous. Damien was still asleep. Crows were flying there, and it bothered her as well. As they were standing at the gate, Damien asked what happened to Ellie, and she just brushed off the conversation. Someone greeted Duke Schuetz for coming back home. The man said they received a letter that he would be back with Lord Damien. Everyone there bowed to Duke Schuetz as they were walking. Duke Schuetz said he forgot to mention one more detail in the message, that he brought one more child with him, who was going to be his daughter-in-law. The servant didn't understand. He looked directly at Auntie, begging for an explanation through his eyes. Auntie said that's how it turned out. The servant said Sir Auntie should have stopped his grace. Ellie held her dress tightly. She knew they would not welcome her with open arms. She remembered that when she was younger, her new family members treated her badly and called her the daughter of a thief. She was younger at that time, so she was excited to meet a new family every time. But she thought she was just another fool. But this time she wasn't like her younger self. She was all prepared for the people's words and whether they would accept her or not, and she was confident that she would be able to dodge all the arguments they might have about her. The servant said that they don't have a young maid to serve the young lady. His Grace should have mentioned the words in advance. Ellie didn't understand why she needed a maid. Ellie said to them that she would be fine on her own. She did not want to make a fuss. She didn't need anyone's help. Back at the orphanage, she did all the work on her own. She did not want them to think that she was just another annoying kid. The servant said not to worry about her ways, and he would look into the matter. France looked at Ellie. As they were standing, a young lady whispered something in Auntie's ears. Auntie said to Duke Schuetz that the vassals and distant relatives were waiting for him. He asked if the rumors had spread this much when he was absent, and Auntie said maybe they had spread. Duke Schuetz said that this might cause many people to come to meet Damien. Duke Schuetz said to tell them that he would meet them after he got some rest. He ordered France to show the children their rooms. France took them to show their rooms. Ellie was thinking that vassals and distant relatives might be a threat to Damien. She was thinking the Duke might have adopted Damien, but it would take more time to show his power. This meant Damien's journey had just begun. She flinched and said she would not let anyone be a threat to Damien. A man slammed his hand on the table and yelled that he found the child, but there was no way the child could be alive until now. Another man spoke up that His Grace had seen him with his own eyes. The man said this could be some kind of trick. Such a thing could be possible with a small field mana stone. Maybe an illusion. House Kleider's vassals and distant relatives were waiting for their chance to take control of the merchant guild. On top of that, Duke Schuetz had already taken custody of Damien. The man said, did they even have any idea that for no less than 11 years, they had been running the merchant guild? It was them, members of House Shiwitz. They didn't want one person to run the merchant guild, and they didn't want things to go back to how they were just because Duke Shiwitz brought some brat out of nowhere. The man stood up and said they had to do something about it. Another man said they agreed with him, but nobody had the courage to go against Duke Shiwitz. If they could have changed his mind, they would have done it already. The man was so pissed that they might lose control and have nothing to say to protect their seats. The door opened, and Duke Shiwitz came inside, asking what was going on, saying his ears were hurting in the hallway. The men greeted Duke Shiwitz, and they sat down. Duke Shiwitz said he suspected they might be running their mouths, so he intentionally came to visit them. He looked at everyone and said frankly that he had found Duke Kleider's son. The man sitting next to His Grace said this was a moment for celebration and also asked the name of the child. Duke Shiwitz said it's Damien. It's a noble name. Well, in that case, he has all the rights to be head of House Kleider. Duke Shiwitz understood that they were trying to convince him to put Damien against them. He knew that if the small kid ever thought about carrying the Kleider family name, these people wouldn't hesitate to tear him to shreds. The same could be said for Kleider family relatives and vassals too. Duke Shiwitz tapped his first finger on the bench and said that Damien has a very bright friend with him, and she looked like she could be useful to the family, so he brought her along with him. He would personally instruct them so they may be his official successors. The man sitting next to Duke Shiwitz was shocked and asked what he was thinking. Duke Shiwitz said he would spare nothing to ensure that those children are able to carry on the Kleider name on their shoulders. The men started raising questions, saying his statements were ridiculous and why would they do such a thing. But then he said to silence and announced that he would adopt Damien and the girl, and they both would stay under his care. He would also ensure that when the time comes, they both get married to each other. All the men were shocked at the thought of the marriage of that kid. Duke Shiwitz knew that it was irrespective of age to be recognized as an official member of the family when someone completed their betrothal rites. That meant if Damien got married to the girl Duke Shiwitz selected, he would be more powerful than the Kleider Merchant Guild. He knew that once they found out that Damien was alive, they would probably try to cast him out or have their daughter marry him. But Duke Shiwitz wouldn't let that happen. Duke Shiwitz said he was asking for their blessings because they had all sworn their loyalty and lives to his family. He made sure that everyone agreed with the decision he took there. Everyone was so silent and stood there. A man was angered that he didn't know Duke Shiwitz would do nothing but rather go beyond imagination in selecting a wife for Damien. He had to make a new plan. Ellie was surprised to see her room. It was glorious. That room had everything: a bed, a mirror, and a large space. She was so shocked to see it was her room. She couldn't imagine it and wanted to pinch herself to check if it was real. She called for Damien. He was not there, but a few ladies were standing behind Ellie. They said the butler took Lord Damien for a bath. She didn't understand. The lady said they would be serving her from then on. The woman introduced herself as Royana and said she would do everything in her power to ensure her comfort during her time there. The women bowed to Ellie, and Ellie also bowed back to the women with greetings. The women said she did not need to be formal with them. She wondered if that was okay because she had never given any orders to any adult, and they were very polite with her, and she was not used to it. Maid Royana smiled and said she would get used to it. Royana then introduced her mates to Ellie one by one. She also said to feel free to call them whatever she wanted if she did not remember their names. It wasn't hard for her to remember their names, and she called their names and thanked everyone for everything. The maids were so shocked to see such a kind kid there. She was thinking that maybe they had misunderstood her as noble like Damien, and that's the reason they were acting like this. Royana said to Ellie to follow her, and she would help her take a bath. Ellie was a bit shocked to hear that Royana would help her take a bath. She took her to the steam room and did her hair. She didn't want to go with them, but she didn't have any choice. She never wanted them to see her malnourished body. She determined herself to get used to it so they wouldn't think less of her. A maid standing behind Ellie smiled. Royana asked her what happened. Ashley said Miss Ellie was so adorable. That's the reason she was smiling. Another maid asked her whether she used any scented oil before taking a bath. She didn't know what those were and said warm water would be enough. The water in the orphanage was so cold. She didn't understand why everyone was looking at her and thought maybe she shouldn't be so honest about everything. Royana said she would do her best to find an oil that she would like. Ellie thanked them and said she wouldn't bother them much, but Royana rephrased the sentence, saying they would try to serve her until she got comfortable with bothering them. Ellie didn't understand what she meant by that. Royana just smiled at her. It was night. Ellie was on her bed thinking about how the three maids helped her take a bath. She was thinking about the hot water and scented oil they used for her. She felt so refreshed and never wanted to leave that place. She rolled over on the bed and bumped into Damien. She asked him what happened. He said nothing happened. He sat there in front of her and said he was taken aback for a moment. Ellie noticed Damien's cute haircut. She understood that he must be feeling self-conscious because of his short hair. He noticed that Ellie was looking even prettier than earlier when he saw her. His heart was beating faster than before. She asked if the butler said anything to him that day. He asked, like what? She leaned to him and whispered in his ear that she heard in the future they have to get married. He didn't understand what marriage was. She told him that getting married means loving the same person for the rest of their life. He again asked what is love. Even she didn't know how to explain love to a kid, so she started explaining to him how her mother told her about love. That when one falls in love, it tingles inside, and one feels like they have a fever all over their body. Their heart pounds fast. He started blushing and thought maybe he loves Ellie. She was still thinking about how to explain this to him. Damien suddenly started hiccuping. She rushed to him and asked what was wrong. She told him he could stop hiccups if he pinched his nose. She understood that he was in shock because he just learned that they were going to get married to each other. She didn't know that helping him find a family would place her in a position where she would become part of it. She didn't want people to think that she planned all this because of his money and all. Ellie pinched his cheeks and asked if he was going to hiccup again. He didn't understand why she asked. She said his face was all red and it seemed he was about to explode. She was thinking maybe one day everyone would find out that she was the daughter of a thief and asked him if he felt tired or something. Even though Duke Shuitz brought her there, he said he was just feeling hot. She said she should move a bit then if he felt hot. He told her not to leave him, and she replied that he was feeling hot. He still wanted her to stay there. She looked at him and asked if he was worried about the nightmare he was going to have again. He said yes. This place was all new to him, so he was kind of scared of it. According to the book, he should be able to adjust himself, but reality was disappointing. He slept there. She hugged him and said it's fine for him even if it's hot. This way, he won't be scared. He hugged her back. She found Damien even cuter this time. They slept there and she told him to sleep tightly. A lot had happened to them. Their life was hard, but from there apart, Damien's life would be easy. She hoped that from tomorrow he might see some glorious dreams. The man asked if he got any news that he should tell him. The informer said he had some news. He told the nobleman that the young girl Duke Shuitz brought himself was the daughter of an infamous thief. The informer said the nobleman knew her name as well. She was the one who made off with the emperor's treasure. He was thinking that a boy out of nowhere and a daughter of a thief wasn't right. The nobleman threw a bag of money towards the informer. The nobleman said that the informer was, as always, quick and fast. The informer left, and the nobleman was thinking to tell this information to the emperor as soon as possible. He understood that Duke Shuitz might already know about it. If the emperor learned this truth, the whole wealth of both families would go out of their hands to the imperial family. He thought and came up with a plan to take Ellie out of the palace. In the morning, Ellie was yawning. Rihanna asked her whether she was still feeling sleepy. Ellie said she was just a little bit sleepy. Rihanna told her to hold up because she was going to meet elders and vassals today. Meanwhile, the other maids were choosing a dress for her. They made Ellie ready. She thought she would feel cuter after wearing the dress. Meanwhile, the maids were admiring her. Rihanna told her that Lord Damien would be late, and if she liked, she could wait in her room. She agreed to wait for him. She was exhausted waiting there, and she heard the maids talking about her cuteness. She was tired of waiting for him and thinking when he would get done with his outfit. Someone knocked on the door. Rihanna went and asked what happened. A maid said Viscount Carbonneau wanted to meet Ellie. She thought maybe he just wanted to get to know her better before they met formally. Rihanna said that Ellie wasn't ready to meet anyone yet. Viscount Carbonneau came directly inside and was standing just in front of Ellie. He said she looked perfect to him. Viscount asked her if he came at a bad time. Ellie looked into his eyes and understood that he wasn't there for greetings but for something else. She answered that she had just finished when he arrived with a huge smile on her face. The Viscount said his timing was perfect as always. He also said he brought something special for Ellie. The maid took the case and opened it there. It was the Blue Hope crystal, which is only available in their territory. He wanted to catch her stealing something so that he could take her out of the palace. Viscount said, with the Blue Hope crystal, she would be able to perform magic. He brought it especially for her. He smiled and asked Rihanna to leave them alone as he had some private matters to discuss with Ellie. Rihanna hesitated at first, but then Viscount assured her that he wouldn't put Ellie into any kind of trouble. Rihanna looked at Ellie and she nodded to Rihanna. Rihanna left them alone in the room. Ellie looked at the gemstone and thought that it was the same color as Damien's eyes. The Viscount told her to stop looking at the crystal, as it was not something she deserved to see. She didn't like the way he talked to her. Viscount said he was a generous man and would let Ellie look at it as much as she wanted and return it to his maid once she was done. He then walked outside, telling her to meet him sooner. She was stunned and chilled there, not understanding what just happened. The maid said that it was true. Lord Viscount took the Manhwa stone with her in mind and asked if she wanted to look at it again. By that time, Rihanna came inside and said Damien had arrived and they should get going now. Ellie stood up and walked away from there. The maid holding the stone was shocked that Ellie didn't even look at it. She remembered that the Viscount told her to slip the Manhwa stone into Ellie's pocket before she left, and she wouldn't even notice. Rihanna asked Ellie about the talk and if the Viscount did something. Ellie replied that he didn't do anything. The Viscount's maid took the stone into her hand and determined to slip the stone into Ellie's pocket. The maid said she was going as well. She looked at Ellie and thought she needed to do it now. She intentionally fell towards Ellie, and without being noticed by anyone, she slipped the stone into her pocket. Rihanna asked Ellie if she was okay. The maid fell down, but Ellie was not hurt as she stepped aside when the maid was falling. Rihanna was worried if she got hurt or something. Rihanna said she would teach a lesson to the maid who fell towards her. The maid was thinking about whether they noticed her doing that or not. Rihanna said the maid was waiting for her outside and she should leave now. But Ellie noticed something. She grabbed the maid's hand and said she fell down and her clothes looked a little dirty. The maid looked at Ellie and said she was fine. Ellie then left for the meeting. Ellie greeted everyone with a bow. Everyone noticed and started talking about how she didn't even have a family name. They never thought Damien's wife would be a commoner. They didn't understand why Duke Shuitz brought her. Ellie smiled, knowing everyone would talk about her, but it was a little less than what she expected. Damien was angry that they were taunting Ellie. Duke Shuitz tapped on his shoulder and told him to calm down until he returned to his place. Damien calmed down. Ellie asked Damien why he didn't look good. Damien said it was nothing. Viscount called Duke Shuitz. He said he wanted to show him something. Duke Shuitz said it should be important because he opened the topic there in public. He should have arranged a meeting to show him whatever he wanted. Viscount said it was about the blue crystal he mentioned earlier. He polished it and wanted to show it to Duke Shuitz. Duke Shuitz agreed to see the crystal. Viscount asked his maid to present the crystal to Duke Shuitz. The maid said she needed to inform him about something. She whispered into his ear, and the Viscount was shocked. Duke Shuitz asked what happened. Viscount said the blue crystal he wanted to give Duke Shuitz was actually missing. Everyone started mumbling. Someone asked who had it last, and the maid said she held it last before it disappeared. The Viscount got angry and asked how she could be so careless and who held it last before she touched it. She said the last time she showed it to Ellie, she didn't return it to her. She explained when he went there to meet her and showed the crystal. Viscount said he was sorry to say this to Duke Shuitz, but he had heard something disturbing. He said everyone had heard the story of a thief who broke into Count Lachenal's manor. He said Miss Ellie is the daughter of that thief. He said they could not ignore this. Duke Shuitz understood his tricks. He knew that he was about to bring something up as he mentioned the blue crystal. Viscount asked if Duke Shuitz would allow him to search the girl for the crystal. Ellie was shocked to hear this. The Viscount asked Duke Shuitz for permission to search Ellie for the stone. Ellie couldn't believe what she had just heard. He asked again for Duke Shuitz's permission. Ellie accepted that her mother was a thief, but she herself had never stolen anything. The Viscount, speaking harshly, said he merely wanted to check. Ellie agreed but insisted that if he didn't find anything, he had to apologize to her. The Viscount acknowledged her boldness and accepted her terms. He asked Duke Shuitz for permission once more, but Duke Shuitz noted that Ellie had already given her consent. The Viscount's maid began searching Ellie's pockets directly but was shocked to find nothing. The Viscount, thinking she had found it, was also shocked. He shouted at the maid, accusing her of not checking carefully enough, then pushed her aside to search Ellie's dress himself. He, too, found nothing. The onlookers began whispering that Ellie might not have stolen the crystal after all. The Viscount, pale and certain he would find the crystal, grew enraged. He grabbed Ellie, pushing her back and forth, demanding to know where she had hidden it. Damien rushed to protect Ellie. Duke Shuitz grabbed the Viscount's hand, declaring that he would not allow this ridiculous scene to continue. Ellie was surprised to see Duke Shuitz come to her defense. Duke Shuitz accused the Viscount of wretched tricks and asked if he thought Duke Shuitz was a fool. The Viscount claimed he was acting out of concern, but Duke Shuitz was not convinced. He called for Auntie. When Auntie arrived, Duke Shuitz instructed him to search the Viscount. The Viscount protested, confident that nothing would be found, but Auntie discovered the blue crystal in the Viscount's pocket. The Viscount was shocked, claiming he had no idea how the crystal got there. Ellie knew that the blue crystal was lightweight. She had managed to swap the crystal by distracting the maid when she fell, removing it from her pocket without being noticed. When the Viscount was near Ellie, she had silently slipped it into his pocket, knowing the thick northern clothing would conceal it. Duke Shuitz demanded that the Viscount pay the price for his deception. The Viscount was terrified. Duke Shuitz ordered Auntie to take the Viscount and his maid away. The Viscount pleaded for mercy, but the door shut behind him. Ellie felt sad about the Viscount's fate, even though he had been deceitful. It was hard for her to watch someone end up like that, but she knew she had protected Damien and herself. Someone mentioned the condition they had discussed. Ellie said she remembered. Duke Shuitz pointed to his ears and told the Viscount to apologize to Ellie for doubting her. Everyone stood there in guilt, then knelt and asked Ellie for forgiveness. Duke Shuitz said that under normal circumstances, he would have punished them immediately. But since Auntie was busy, he would revisit the matter after the meeting. Everyone admired his generosity. Duke Shuitz told everyone to sit down, including Ellie and Damien. They began discussing Damien and Ellie's marriage. Someone pointed out that it was forbidden for a noble to marry a commoner. Duke Shuitz acknowledged this and said it was the purpose of the meeting. He proposed finding a family to adopt Ellie as their daughter. Ellie was delighted to hear this, but everyone was shocked. Duke Shuitz asked who would adopt Ellie. Ellie smiled, wondering who would adopt the daughter of a thief. Duke Shuitz asked who would adopt Ellie as their daughter. If no one chose Ellie, then Duke Shuitz asked Ellie to choose a parent for herself. She was shocked. Duke Shuitz explained that she would carry the family's name, so it was up to her which family she wanted to accept. She turned pale. Ellie began thinking that if she joined a noble family, they might not treat her well and could taunt her. Their children might not accept a commoner either. She sat down, sad and lonely. A voice called for her. She looked up and saw her mother. Her mother reassured her that wherever she went, she would be loved. Her mother reminded her that since the day she was born, she had been the most beloved daughter. These thoughts made her sad. She had once hated her mother for giving her a dishonorable life, but she realized that her mother was the only person who had truly loved her. She doubted that anyone would willingly accept her as their daughter, thinking she would be treated more like a guest in their home. She began looking around for someone. At that moment, a maid disrupted the meeting, saying she had an urgent message for Baron Amanta. Duke Shuitz asked what the message was. The maid explained that the Baroness was suddenly ill. Baron Amanta apologized to Duke Shuitz and asked to be excused. People began murmuring about the Baroness's condition. As soon as the Baron heard about it, he ran out. Ellie remembered hearing the name Amanta before. Someone mentioned the Baron's efforts to develop his mine, but another noted his hands were tied. Ellie then recalled Baron Amanta as a nobleman who owned a small mine. She remembered that Damien would one day use a sword made from minerals found in that mine to win future battles. She also thought about the importance of wealth. Ellie told Duke Shuitz that she wanted to be with Baron Amanta. Duke Shuitz said he wouldn't stop her if that was what she wanted, but she would need to persuade the Baron as well. He added that she wouldn't be able to use tricks on Baron Amanta. She didn't understand what he meant by that. Duke Shuitz explained that while Viscount Carbonneau might be tricked by her, Baron Amanta definitely would not. She hesitated, realizing that he knew she had slipped the crystal into the Viscount's coat. She didn't understand why he hadn't mentioned it before, but she knew he had helped her meet Damien. She wondered what he stood to gain from saving her. Duke Shuitz asked again if she could do it. She realized that he was the only one who understood her worth. She said she would do it and show what she was capable of. He nodded. Damien and Ellie changed into something good and pretty and went out. She asked how she looked, and Damien said it was beautiful. They entered a room full of beautiful flowers. Ivana told Ellie that at the end of the corridor, a room connected to the flowers. She was happy to see that Damien liked being there. Ever since Auntie took the Viscount away, they hadn't heard anything about him. Damien was relieved too. Damien started running after a flower. Ellie found it cute, thinking that Damien might not have chased a flower before. Damien caught the flower and called Ellie over excitedly. He told her that the color of the flowers matched her hair. She smiled and suggested they find a flower that matched Damien's hair color. She pointed at a flower and said she found one that matched his eyes. They were happy together, and Ellie was glad to see Damien happy as well. She then told him that sooner or later she was going to be adopted by someone else. Damien didn't understand and asked, "Adopted again?" She explained that she would only take the surname of Amanta but would visit him every day and continue to stay with him. She promised this to him. He smiled, and Ellie liked his smile. She asked Damien if he wanted to share anything with her. He told her about his sword training and how the real training would begin the next day. Ellie told him that maybe this was their last day to play and asked if they could play hide and seek for the rest of the day. Damien didn't know what hide and seek was, so she explained that one person hides while the other looks for them. Damien imagined this and agreed to play. She described the rules and everything. By evening, they were worn out from playing. Both were heavily tired. She told him to let her go as the game was finished. Suddenly, they heard a voice. They looked around but didn't see anyone. Ellie was scared. She didn't understand where the voice came from since it was just the two of them. A big dark figure appeared out of nowhere. Ellie and Damien got scared. Ellie hugged and squeezed Damien tightly. Nothing happened as they both closed their eyes. Ellie opened her eyes and looked at the figure. It was a woman sitting on the ground with a horrified face. She was shivering and scared. Her face was pale. The woman asked Ellie where she was. She was feeling cold. Ellie noticed that she wasn't from Duke Shuitz's household. Ellie asked her if she was okay and helped her to her feet. Ellie noticed that her clothes were fancy and decided that she must not be a worker. She suggested taking her to the greenhouse first. Ellie noticed something. The lady's hands were as cold as ice. She knew if the woman stayed outside, something bad could happen to her. The lady was already in shock, and Ellie knew if she forced her to come with her, she would get more scared. She needed to be as kind as possible to avoid frightening her further. With a big smile on her face, Ellie introduced herself and told her she was taking a walk with her friend Damien. She asked the lady's name as well. The lady was so stunned she could barely speak. Ellie understood that the woman was in trauma and perhaps didn't remember anything. She knew that people who suffer from trauma often have memory problems, similar to dementia, and that anxiety could worsen the condition. There was no cure for it. Ellie held her hand and asked why her hands were so cold. She gave her a scarf and said there was a place full of flowers where it was much warmer. She invited her to join them. The lady asked with curiosity if that was true. Ellie replied yes, and Damien nodded in agreement. Ellie asked Damien to support the woman to get her back on her feet. The woman smiled. The three of them went inside the garden. The woman was feeling warm again. Ellie asked why she was outside in the cold and if she was lost. The lady replied that she didn't know why she was outside. Ellie said it was fine to forget things, it happens to her too. Ellie asked for her name, but the woman couldn't remember. Ellie said she couldn't call her madam all the time, so she needed a name. The woman kept thinking. From behind, someone said Vieira. Ellie looked back and recognized the voice. It was a man who said the lady had no idea how they had been searching for her and what she was doing there. The lady looked back and said Marvin and mentioned she must have lost her way. Ellie didn't understand anything at first, but the man was Baron Amanta. Baron Amanta told the lady it wasn't safe for her there and asked her to come to him. Ellie realized they were married and that the woman was Baroness Amanta. Baron Amanta said he had told her to stay with the maid. She apologized, and he said to go home with him. Baron Amanta then addressed Ellie, saying he might not know her intentions, but she should not use his wife's suffering for her gain again. Ellie didn't understand why he said that. He might have thought Ellie got close to Baroness Amanta for her own benefit. Damien defended Ellie, saying Baron Amanta shouldn't talk trash about her. Baron Amanta said Lord Damien misunderstood him. Damien insisted there was no misunderstanding and that Baron Amanta shouldn't insult Ellie, as she was kinder than he knew. Ellie was shocked to see Damien speaking like this to one of the great knights. Due to his old age, Baron Amanta didn't use his sword as much as before, but he would be Damien's master one day to teach him swordsmanship. Ellie intervened, telling Damien to calm down as it didn't bother her. Baron Amanta taunted Ellie again, saying she truly had some tricks and understood why his grace took her under his wings. But her tricks wouldn't work on him. He added that he had no intention of taking Ellie as his daughter, and warned her to stay away from his wife. He then walked away with his wife. Ellie was shocked to her core. She knew Baron Amanta wouldn't like her, but she didn't expect him to hate her this much. She realized that not only was she in Baron Amanta's bad books, but Damien was as well. Ellie told Damien that he shouldn't be so defensive with everyone. He asked why not, reminding her that she had told him to defend himself and fight back. She clarified that he should only get mad and fight back when someone did that to him. Damien said he got mad because Baron Amanta insulted her and asked if that was wrong. Ellie stood there, looking at him. She noticed that before, Damien wasn't able to detect anger and sadness. He might have opened up to Ellie but still couldn't express his own feelings well. Yet he got angry and fought back against Baron Amanta. She couldn't take back what she said. She looked at him, patted his shoulder, and said she was proud of him. She understood that Damien had started sharing his feelings and had taken another step forward in his life. He smiled. She knew that Damien still had issues with other people and couldn't get along with them easily, but he was kind and nice. Once she explained all kinds of feelings to him, he would get along with others as well. She told him that even if he got mad, when she said to stop, he needed to stop. He asked, even if she was in danger. She said danger wouldn't happen to her, she would escape before it happened. He understood her. Someone called for them, Lord Damien and Miss Ellie. It was Ivana, running towards them. Ellie thought that the Baron family had already refused to adopt her. Ivana said they didn't see Baron Amanta there, did they? Ellie said they ran into him. He was with his wife. Ivana told them that if they came across the wife of Baron Amanta, they needed to avoid her. Ellie asked why. Ivana said the Baroness had an illness that made her forget her memories and behave like a child. Ellie may not know what the Baroness would do to them. Ellie understood that this wasn't about her adoption. She asked why she was unwell. Ivana told them that they both had a son, named Sir Jarrett. The Baroness fell ill after the birth of that child. She asked if there was something they could do to treat her illness. Ivana replied she didn't know and advised her to leave it be and alert a servant if she saw the Baroness. Ellie was still confused. She thought that her condition wasn't so bad even after suffering from that illness. She even recognized Baron Amanta after she saw him. Neglecting her may be difficult to control, but leaving her alone isn't the answer, Ellie thought. At night, in Baron Amanta's house, he said to his wife that he entrusted her and she disappeared like this. She was sad, sitting there. He said he knew that she wasn't herself at that moment. He was sad and at a total loss. The woman and Baron Amanta were happy when they learned that his wife was pregnant. They had waited a long time for such a miracle. Vieira's health took a different turn after the birth of their baby. She got into some kind of illness that even doctors couldn't treat. Her memories frequently went missing. One day he got angry with her, unable to hold on anymore. He found her that day sleeping on a cliff. He suspected that the reason for Vieira's memory loss was that she wanted to forget everything. Baron Amanta was the one who always wanted a child. He blamed himself for putting a burden on her shoulders after the birth of their child. She always enjoyed her freedom. While he was talking to himself, Vieira said to Marvin that the child saved her today. Baron Amanta asked which child. Vieira said he saw her too. He remembered the blonde girl. Vieira told him that she warmed her and gave her a scarf. After that, she took her to the warm greenhouse place. Vieira smiled and said she's a little angel. She was still shaking outside. If Ellie hadn't found her there, she would have frozen. Baron Amanta noticed that Vieira smiled, and it was such a long time since he saw Vieira smiling. Vieira asked Marvin to go with her to visit the children to apologize to them. She said the child was her savior. She asked if he was willing to do it for her. He looked at her. Vieira was still smiling. He thought the child might be trying to trick them because she needed their name. But after seeing Vieira smile, he felt guilty for taunting Ellie. He was silent. He nodded that he would do that for her. Ellie said, "Damien, how did he?" She touched his skin and said his skin is so nice and soft. She told him that his skin is like cotton candy, and she will make him one cotton candy, so soft and fluffy. Damien said Ellie may have softer skin, but Ellie said he has the softer skin. Damien touched Ellie's cheeks. Damien was surprised. He was in shock. Ellie asked what happened to him. By that time, a maid came and called for both of them. She said Baron Amanta and Baroness Amanta were there to see both of them. Ellie was surprised to hear this. Baron Amanta said he owed her an apology and bowed to her. Ellie was shocked again. Baron Amanta said he misunderstood what happened between them. He was there to apologize to her. Ellie didn't understand what to say. She thought he was there to have a fight, but she was shocked now. She was thinking maybe he didn't realize his full potential or mine until much later. She didn't understand why he did that. He asked his wife if she wanted rest, but she was okay. Meanwhile, Ellie understood that he was so worried about his wife that he was not able to focus on something else. That means she has created an environment that makes Baron Amanta focus on his work, and that will eventually help Damien to fight with a sword faster. Ellie asked Baron Amanta to accept his apology. He agreed to her. She said that people who suffer from neglect become more easily confused, and raising your voice makes them even more scared. And that's why he should not lash out at his wife. He was shocked to hear this from her. Ellie said to Baroness Amanta that she wanted to walk with her. Baroness Amanta didn't understand why she asked her. Baron Amanta asked if that's all she wanted. Ellie said yes, she wanted to go for frequent walks with Baroness Amanta. As she hadn't been there for a long time, she hadn't made any friends besides Damien, and he would be training from that day, so she wanted to be friends with Baroness Amanta. Damien said he could make time for her. She said to Baroness Amanta that she wouldn't bother her too much, but to accompany her 3 times a week. Baroness said she would be a burden to her. She asked Baron Amanta to spend more time with Baroness Amanta. Baron Amanta agreed to this. She said they could go together to the greenhouse as well. There they could watch flowers together, and she wanted to show Baroness Amanta as well, Ellie said. Baroness Amanta was happy. She knelt down and agreed to go out with her. She said she's looking forward to it. They were talking, and Ellie told her how she ended up there in Grace Castle. Baroness Amanta said it was not easy to decide to come north. Ellie was familiar with adults talking politely with her. She said there were a few things that made her scared, but it was still better than the orphanage. It was 100 times or maybe 1,000,000 times better than the orphanage. Baroness Amanta said she might have been through a lot. She held her hand and said it must have been hard for Ellie. Ellie was sad as someone understood her and told her that it was not that bad too, as the other children of the orphanage were sweet. Sometimes they were not, and teachers were definitely not good. But His Grace took care of them. Baroness Amanta was laughing that His Grace never really took matters into his hands in such kind. But he did. Ellie said he saved Damien by bringing him from the orphanage to the castle. Baroness Amanta said it might be because of his guilt. Baroness Amanta didn't know whether it was good or not to tell her, but there wasn't anyone else who could explain this as good as her. She said she should tell her, as her memories are available now. She said that about 15 years ago, the Empire got into a major war. It was due to a prophecy the great temple graphs received. A mystical power would bring glory to the Empire again. The mystical power is from the life force flowing through the trees. And with that, they understand that nature is the source of magic. And with that, each tree is born with mana, and that is more powerful too. In fact, the people living in the jungle near trees can use different magics. But the world tree suddenly vanished. Even after giving so much effort, they were not able to regrow trees, which led to a number of rumors. Rumors were that the tribe living in the tree world was hiding its true powers, even though they were the ones who had saved it. And the noble families declared war against the tree world people. Both Duke Schuitz and Duke Kleider fought in the war together. Both of them became best friends. They won the battle, and people praised both the dukes. They were waiting for Duke Schuitz's arrival, but he wasn't alone. He was there, but with a lady, Yuria. Ellie thought who was Yuria. There was nothing in the book named Yuria. Yuria belonged to one of the tribes. Ellie was surprised that someone from the tribe became a duchess. While Baroness Amanta said people started calling the Duke Schuitz family as the devil's progeny. For generations, the members of the family suffered from madness. They suffered from an ancient curse, and people also started calling His Grace's lands cursed lands. Ellie was thinking that the book was all about Damien, and she never read something that Baroness Amanta told her. Whereas Baroness Amanta told her that the reason why His Grace fought the war was to relieve the madness. But ever since Yuria arrived, his madness was gone. Ellie asked what does that mean. She added that maybe it's because of the complex magic of the tribe. Duke Schuitz and Yuria got married, and just like every other couple, they had fights too. And that didn't surprise Ellie. Yet after having arguments and fights, he loved her a lot. She was the only one who could free him from generations of madness. Even though she was far from her tribe, he had no choice but to bring her with him. Every magic comes with a price that someone needs to pay, Baroness Amanta said. When His Grace went to quell the uprising of the rebels after 3 years, Yuria tried to break the curse all by herself. But after that incident, Duke Schuitz broke relations with everyone, but he maintained relations with Duke Kleider. After a long wait of 2 years, Kleider's wife gave birth to a boy. And after that child's birth, Duke Schuitz opened his castle's gate for the first time. But then Duke Kleider and his wife died in an accident. Ellie understood why Duke Schuitz felt guilty about Damien. He blamed himself for whatever happened with Damien. Ellie could relate herself to Duke Schuitz as she had also lost someone. Baroness Amanta got worried because of Ellie's face. She was sad. Baroness Amanta thought she shouldn't have said anything. She said she just felt bad about His Grace. Vieira told her that something about her reminded her of her son. Ellie asked if she also has a son. Vieira told her that she does have a son, but he's a lot older. She can't be friends with him. And also, he was busy at the mine with her husband. As soon as Ellie heard it, she thought of money. Ellie asked Lady Amanta if they could visit the mine. It was the mine. It was located in the desert. A man said he needs results and fast. It was Jared Amanta. He was thinking about how he can refine the sword. He was thinking that at this rate of working, he won't be able to make his mother happy and won't receive recognition also from his father. He was sad about that he may disappoint his father by not getting any use for him. Baron Amanta came there. He asked Jarrett why Lord Baron Amanta came there. Baron Amanta replied, does he need a reason to be there at his own mine? Jarrett was silent. Baron Amanta asked him if he found out more about the ore. Jarrett said he was not able to and apologized to his father. Jarrett flinched. Baron Amanta said he does not need to be in a hurry. He can take time for that. But Jarrett said no, he will do his best to make his lord proud of him and said not to worry. Baron Amanta was surprised. He said, so be it. Baron Amanta said, work hard, spare no effort, and bumped into Ellie. Ellie said, that hurt. Ellie and Baroness Amanta came to the mine. Baron Amanta asked why they were there and why Vieira was there too. Ellie greeted Lord Baron Amanta with a good day. Vieira said she knew that he wouldn't be pleased, but she wanted to visit the mine with Miss Ellie. Baron Amanta was worried about her as in the mine there were so many tools that can harm them. Ellie asked Jarrett what the blue thing behind him was. She asked if that was some kind of weapon or something. Ellie found out that the weapon was sparkling. She asked if she can touch it or not. Jarrett understood that the girl Duke Shuitz chose for Lord Damien was here. He found her much smaller. He said to her that swords can be dangerous and she should not touch one. She got sad and said she understood. She also apologized to him. He didn't like that she was sad, so he said swords can be dangerous, so let him show her something else. Ellie got excited for that. Baron Amanta was about to stop them, but Baroness Amanta stopped him from doing that. Jarrett showed her a monocle. Monocle is used to power the mana stone. Ellie found it interesting. He showed her how to hold it near the eyes. She was getting dizzy as soon as she held the monocle. Jarrett told her to close one eye. Ellie was looking great with that monocle and asked him the way she was holding it. Baroness Amanta found her beautiful as well. Baroness Amanta said to Baron Amanta that this is what it may feel like having a granddaughter. Isn't that right, Marvin? Ellie was walking and saw something sparkling. She asked what if this. Jarrett said not to touch any of these. She didn't understand why not. Jarrett said that those ores are unique and they recently discovered it. Body heat makes them harden immediately, and once they are stuck it's hard for them to get them off. They have a strange substance too. She took a step away saying just like a monster. Jarrett asked her if she has seen a monster before. She said she hasn't, but Damien has seen one. She said before Damien was brought to the castle, he was encountered by monsters. He described them as frightened and once they grab you, they don't let go, Ellie added. Meanwhile, in the castle, Damien was busy with his practice. The teacher asked him what happened. He said he felt like Ellie took his name. Jarrett laughed and said that's true. Once they grab, they never let go. He remembered that when he was younger, he has seen something like that. Flags were raised. The guard on the horse orders other guards that to return to the castle once they make sure that there are no monsters in the rubble. They all said yes sir. It was Jarrett in a younger age. He saw something flickering. He was thinking that there were crystals also. He found it interesting. As he was about to touch the crystal, someone stopped him. It was Baron Amanta. He said that's a rare monster with special properties. Jarrett didn't understand how a monster. The lady standing beside said that it's a crystal outside like a sparkle gem. But you won't be able to remove it the moment it sticks to someone. The crystal may look so pretty outside, but inside that crystal can go deep inside human flesh. It was a monster. Both Jarrett and Baron Amanta figured something. They were talking alone. Ellie was happy that they've figured out that the mine was a monster den, and they will use the monster to make weapons. Even if the monster crystal touches one person for a moment of time, it is not possible to feel the toxin inside the crystal. But if someone holds it for a longer time, it enters the body and becomes a terrible and deadly weapon. Ellie was thinking that it was strange that someone actually thought to make monster weapons, and that defines that they are truly vessels of Duke Shuitz. But she also recognized that the things were happening 3 years earlier than what was written in the book. Baroness Amanta said they should head back now. Ellie said that they didn't even talk much that day. Baroness Amanta had enough of that much talk with Ellie. Baroness Amanta thanked Ellie for doing something great for Baron Amanta and their son. Ellie didn't understand what she was talking about. Baroness Amanta said they should get back to the palace before it gets dark, or His Grace would get worried about her. Ellie held Baroness Amanta's hand. Baron Amanta and his son were still talking. It was already pitch dark night. The butler was explaining that Baroness Amanta agreed to meet Ellie 3 times a week. Duke Shuitz said it was clever of her that she approached Baroness Amanta instead of the Baron. Duke Shuitz was also relieved that from now on, the Baron will be able to focus more on his work. And by the name of Baron Amanta, the butler gave Duke Shuitz a box, saying that Baron Amanta sent this to him. They opened it, and it was an arrow inside. Duke Shuitz took out the arrow. The butler explained that Baron Amanta said the arrow is made up of newly discovered ore. Duke Shuitz asked what kind of ore it was. The butler added that the ore was some sort of monster, and to make a weapon out of a monster was really a clever idea. Duke Shuitz was worried about Baron Amanta due to his wife's condition, but he was managed to deliver something after all. But a sword would have been better after all. The butler said that this is just a start, and he'll make some new weapons as time passes by. He also said that he has understood why Duke Shuitz was ready to take Miss Ellie under his wings. The butler told him that Miss Ellie was the reason for these discoveries after all. He was stunned that the child made this possible. The butler praised her too. Duke Shuitz started thinking something. The reason why Duke Shuitz took Ellie with him is that he thought Ellie might have some connections with the Emperor's family. Ellie may be young, but she was bold and clever, and this made him suspect that she is somehow involved with the imperial family. They may be using her to train Damien to submit to them. He also suspected that the death of Clyder was not an accident, and that was the reason he kept Ellie along with him in case she reveals some information about the Emperor. He had the doubt of having her connection with the Emperor. Someone was standing at the door and the butler noticed it. He took out his knife from his coat. He opened the door fully. He noticed that it was Ellie. Ellie greeted him. The butler asked her why she was there. She said she wanted to greet His Grace. The butler allowed her to meet His Grace. She was there because she wanted to hear more about the ore development. She thought the butler was a kind person, but she needs to be careful around him. Duke Shuitz came and asked what's going on there. Ellie said she has something for His Grace. She took out the medicine. She said it's for His Grace's headache. She said that Royana mentioned His Grace suffers from a headache, so she brought him medicines. The butler laughed and said how cute she was and where did she find it anyway. She explained how earlier she had a headache, but she asked what the butler was hiding behind his back. The butler threw the knife away and said, "Look, there's nothing in my back." She said she might have been mistaken. His Grace asked her why did she take the trouble for. She said she was worried about him. His Grace didn't understand. The butler asked her if she can give him medicines because he was having a headache too. She gave the medicine to France. His Grace took the medicines from France. France didn't understand why did he asked. His Grace snatched the medicines from France's hands. France said His Grace was not sick in his life. His Grace asked Ellie why did she bring him medicines. He doubted her that she was there only for medicine. She understood that she was caught. He didn't fall for that trick. Her plan was to leave a good impression on Duke Shuitz. She said he allowed her to choose a family all by her own, so she wanted to choose again a family. His Grace asked why she wants to pick a different family. He said picking a new family won't benefit her from the current agreement. Ellie knew he won't say yes. His Grace said he understood that she has her reasons. He asked her which family she wants to choose this time. She was surprised and said House Shuitz. She said she wants him to adopt her. His Grace got confused. She wanted to leave. She was waiting for her turn to get old enough so she can run away. His Grace said don't be ridiculous. He hates inconvenience and fuss and also dislikes children. He gave her 3 red cards. She said she understands and leaves. France said Ellie is still young. He could have gone softer over her. His Grace said this medication is for children. Ellie is a child, and it makes sense to her that she took the medicines. It was laughable to even think that the pain of curse would go away by any simple medicine. And beside it was children's medicine and it even won't work on him. He was thinking that there may be a chance that Ellie is a spy from the Emperor. Even though he thinks like this, he still feels like Ellie is innocent. Ellie was in deep thought. She was thinking about the previous night's Duke Shuitz's thoughts of accepting her as his daughter. She knew that Duke Shuitz wouldn't accept her, but he was so rude in behavior. Ellie wanted to be his daughter rather than a daughter-in-law. She didn't want to go through the divorce ceremony after marriage with Damien. She thought maybe he didn't want to adopt the daughter of a thief that would threaten his reputation. Only 4 years remained for Damien's first war, and the female lead would appear 5 years after the war. With that being said, she only had 9 years left. Ellie had enough time to run away, as she thought. She was determined to find a source to survive and live happily until the female lead arrives. Baroness Amanda said it's truly an honor for her husband to train Damien under his assistant. Viera didn't believe it, so she asked her husband multiple times. Ellie felt amazing about Damien being trained by Baron Amanta. Her little hint at the mine was able to help Baron Amanta. Along with that, Baron Amanta got ready to train Damien as well. But she was worried about Damien's rude behavior. Baron may have agreed to teach him, but it won't matter if Damien refuses it. She didn't want that to happen, so she had to move quickly. Damien fell down. She rushed towards him. She was worried and asked what happened to him. Ellie saw his cheeks were red and he was sweating. She asked if he needs a doctor. He told her that he got tired, so he sat down. He was all right. That gave some relief to Ellie. Damien would not lie to Ellie. Baroness Amanta came and greeted Damien as well. She told him that by the looks of the night, it seems like it was a difficult training. As Baroness Amanta mentioned it, Ellie saw the looks of other knights as well. They were heavily breathing. She knew that Damien is going to be a sword master one day, but still, they need to be easy on him. She told him that she would visit him to watch him practice with his sword. She wanted to make sure that no one was bullying him. Damien wasn't getting bullied by anyone. She asked him again if he does not want her to watch him practice sword. He hesitantly said that's not what he meant. Damien said he's having a tough time, but the faces of other knights were like they were having a rough time. He said it will become easier if she visits him there. She recognized his expression. It was a feeling of guilt, but she knew that Damien would not lie, so she promised him to visit more often. Baroness Amanta said they both get along well, but knights were crying. Baron Amanta came inside there. He noticed that his wife and Ellie were already there before him. He didn't expect the three of them to be there in the training room. Ellie overheard that Baron Amanta has offered his help for Damien, so she came to visit him if that's not a problem for them. Baron Amanta said it's no issue, and on top of that, she has solved his big problem too. He also had planned to give something to Ellie, but he gave her that gift there. It was a bow. It was a gift for Ellie from Baron Amanta. It was for her, not for Damien. She understood that he gave her that bow because of her help in the mine. He must have got more information about the ore. The bow was also infused with some mana. She asked him that swords are more often used on the battlefield than bows. Baroness Amanta told her that the ability to forge a sword has a limit. She understood that Baron isn't skilled enough to forge a sword yet. Baron said Waybrock will be able to forge a sword maybe. Waybrock was a blacksmith who works at Shuit's castle. Every night their present was holding a sword made by that smith. Ellie thought, why didn't they ask him to make a sword? Baron told her that Waybrock is one eye blind, and the doctor has said he may lose sight in the other eye as well. She was annoyed when she got to know that even doctors can't cure him, but only if he was treated earlier he could have been good by now. But Waybrock refused treatment. She understood that if she kept asking such questions, Baron may suspect her. Baron asked her if she has any more questions for him. She knocked off the conversation by saying that her mother told her not to poke her nose into others' business. She already knew that Baron won't tell her the reason, so she didn't ask. She asked if they are going for training again and told them to remember that Damien is still a kid. She started walking away and was making sure to get more information about Waybrock. Damien held her cloth. She asked what happened. He said he does not like him at all. Ellie got confused. Why does he not like him? She was relieved that no one heard him saying that. She told him that Baron may look like an old man, but he's strong and too tall. He squeezed his wooden sword and said he's bad, because he was rude to Ellie. According to Damien, Ellie was a good person, and Baron got mad at her and made her look like a bad person. He started crying. Ellie patted on his back and said it's fine. He does not have to worry about her. She confronted him, saying he does trust her and that's enough for her. He understood that Ellie is telling the truth. She told him to trust Baron Amanta as much as he trusts Ellie. In the future, Baron Amanta will help Damien a lot. He agreed to what she said and told her if that's what she wants, he'll trust him. She hugged Damien as soon as he agreed to her. She remembered that in the original story Damien was not disliked by other people. She thought maybe it's because of her. She should be aside rather than there in the castle with him. She told him till his training, she will wait for him. Damien has to get stronger. Damien started training there. He blew a strike to Baron Amanta. Baron Amanta also took a step back and held himself. Damien again landed a strike, but Baron Amanta stopped him. France came there. He noticed that along with Lady Amanta, Ellie was there too with her. Ellie asked why France was there. He said it was the first day of training of Lord Damien, so he has to come. He noticed that Damien was holding the sword better already. They both were fighting. Ellie told France that Baron Amanta made this for her. It was a bow crafted from new ore. She was able to get Baron's trust, and she became more useful for him. France saw and said it seems like Baron was one step ahead of his grace. Ellie suspected him of hiding something behind his back, and he was not surprised nor impressed by what she said. She tried to see it, but he tried to hide it from her. A voice took their attention towards Damien. Damien was breathing heavily. She rushed towards him, but she didn't go there. France asked her if she wants to go to him. She wanted to go, but she resisted herself. She can't be there every time for him. He has to learn and carry his family name. He has to pick himself back up. Baron Amanta wasn't planning to spare him, but it turned out he got carried away. Damien yet had to learn a lot about swordsmanship. Baron Amanta was impressed by his ability to predict moves and land counterattacks. Even the knights battling in the battlefield won't be able to predict their opponent's moves, but he was able to predict it easily. Damien again landed a shot to Baron Amanta. Baron Amanta stopped the attack and thought maybe knights have taught him before he arrived. He saw their faces, and it looked like they really had a tough time with Damien. But yet still Damien was able to land his swords. Baron knew that Damien had already fought with monsters. Baron landed a strike, and Damien fell down. Baron told him to get up. The training wasn't over there. Baron Amanta was wondering if those experiences made him this much strong. He told him that there are two fundamentals in swordsmanship, offense and defense. Baron told him that he is good at defending himself, but he can't protect others at his current status. Damien again took his sword and stood up. Damien looked at Baron. Baron attacked him, and Damien lost his sword. With that, Baron said it was enough for the day. He told Damien to get enough rest, but Damien wanted to continue. Baron told him that once the opponent knows one's weak point, the swordsman has already lost. They'll continue after Damien gets some rest. Baron was talking to other knights. He looked back, and it was Ellie. Ellie was concerned about Damien, and Baron understood why his grace brought her. Ellie came to Damien. He was sad. She had never seen Damien with such a face before. She was hoping that he may not start hating Baron. Damien was determined to work hard. He wanted to be stronger. Ellie looked at him and smiled. He hadn't developed any hatred towards Baron, but rather he was more determined to get stronger. His goal was to be stronger than he was before. Ellie praised him, saying he is strong enough for today. But he wanted to be even stronger so that he can protect those he cares about. Ellie noticed that he says this to the main female lead when she appears. Ellie told him to eat more in order to be stronger than before. He asked why eating more, what's the difference? She told him eating more will eventually give him more power so he can fight 17 men at once. Ellie cleaned Damien and Royan called Damien and Ellie there. She was calling them for lunch. She asked them to hurry so lunch wouldn't get cold. She noticed France and Baroness Amanta as well there. She grabbed Damien's hands and Ellie and Damien headed inside the mansion. She told him to be less picky and he agreed to that too. Ellie was surprised to see this much cold outside. Damien was enjoying her company there and said it was still nice to be with her. Damien started copying Ellie as well. She asked if he started copying her as well. She pinched his cheeks and thought he's cute as always. Ellie directed a way to walk with Damien. Maid said that maybe a dangerous path to walk. They should go somewhere else. Ellie asked what happened with the path. She asked why her maid was also holding her nose. Is there something that smells bad? Her maid Ashley had a sensitive nose. She told her that there's a stench coming from somewhere. Even the sweat in the training room was bothering her. Ellie didn't smell anything, but Ellie thought she might be the reason for that smell. Ashley told her that Lord Damien and she smelled like flowers. Ashley told them that she wanted to show a place to them. She asked them both to follow her. She took them to Red Lake. It was only kind there. Many people have drowned there because of the beauty of its color. She took them there because she wanted to warn them. Ellie was shocked when she got to know that people have died inside that lake. Due to so many incidents, rumors got spread around. It wasn't because of the mana in the lake bed, and that's the reason Ellie and Damien should be more careful. Ellie told Damien to be careful and Ashley told Ellie that she needs to be careful as well. A crack sound burst from somewhere. They both looked at the direction it came from. A man with an eye patch and long beard came there. He looked at them. Ellie asked who, and the man started drinking directly. Ellie sniffed and she smelled booze. Ashley said to the man that it's nice meeting him. It has been a while since they met. Did he remember her? She asked. The man looked and said he has told her it is not the place for children to be there. Ashley said she knows about it and a terrifying smell she got into her nose. Ellie noticed that she was having a hard time due to the bad odor coming from the man. Ashley apologized and said they'll be getting going. She said goodbye Waybrock. Ellie recognized him as the man who will forge Damien's sword. Maid told them to head back into the castle. After they came to the castle, Ellie asked Ashley that it was Waybrock, right, who makes weapons for everyone. That's what she heard from Baron. Ashley was tired after walking this much. She told them it was true but long ago. She asked if he stopped making weapons because of his one eye blind. Ashley told her that his daughter drowned in the Red Lake. Ellie got shocked. Ashley told her that it was long ago and everyone in the castle knows about it. Ellie understood why that man smelled like liquor. His daughter died and he got blind too. She felt bad for him. Ashley added that Waybrock only became like that after Lady Uriah died. He was suffering from his daughter's death when she arrived at the castle. Lady Uriah and Waybrock's daughter were the same age, and his depression got worse after talking with Uriah. But after that, Lady Uriah died, and he started drinking all day, and he resisted doctor's treatments as well. Ashley told them again that they should not go near the lake again, never. They agreed to that. She greeted good night to both and closed the door. She was thinking about her mother, and maybe that was the reason she couldn't get his story out of her mind. They both slept together. She couldn't stop thinking about it. She determined to be back there tomorrow. But she remembered her promise to Ashley. Ellie sneezed. She felt cold there. She thought she might have a cold because yesterday, all day she was out there. She didn't think that they would call a doctor after she sneezed only once. The doctor told her it was only a regular sneeze. She found out they are so kind. There, a home and castle physician came out of it. Crows attacked the physician. She thought he is treating Waybrock today. She rushed to the physician to ask about Waybrock. The physician said that they don't have to worry. Waybrock is going to lose eyesight in his other eye as well. She stopped there. The physician told him that Waybrock thinks deterioration is a part of the healing condition. She hid behind the trees. It was a man whom he was talking to through a small ball. The man said to the physician that he should do it more carefully. If Waybrock got out of the picture, there's no one to craft the weapons like him. That a sword that contains Duke's aura. Without the ability of weaponry, Duke Castle will grow slowly. That will be an opportunity for Duke Quinter to take over the weapon trade. The physician said he knows about that, and he's going to Duke Schuetz's house. Without Waybrock, House Schuetz is nothing. They were worried about the ore Baron Amanta took out should not be given to Waybrock in any case. The physician said he's taking care of that too. The physician asked the man if everything goes well, that man will give him some rights in the weapons business. The man said he won't lie to him. He said he's not doubting him. Just making a living is hard. Ellie came out and thought the physician is totally gone mad. Inside Waybrock's house, he woke up by the sound of crows. He found them louder than usual. He came out and said if they could be quiet. He noticed something as well. Ellie was near the river. He rushed towards Ellie, asking what she was doing. He took her hand and threw her away from the lake. He told her that it is truly dangerous to be like this. She woke up and with a big smile said, "Good day, sir." Waybrock was confused. He asked what was good about it. He asked if she was trying to get herself killed there. He thought maybe he yelled at her too much. He knew that people are afraid of him. He should not make Ellie cry at least. Ellie said sorry and thanked him for saving her. She was holding an arrow. He said he didn't save her and asked what she was doing there anyway. She gave him the arrow and said it's about this. She said it's neat, she got that as a gift. Waybrock was still confused with a look. She said she never shot any arrow before, but she didn't want to hurt as well, so she came far away from people. She knew he would be interested. She said she should give it to him then. He asked why him. You cannot take your eyes off it. He turned and said he cannot take anything from a child, he has a conscience. She said if she gave it to him, Lord Amanta would be sad eventually. She asked if he wants to take a look then. He agreed for a look. He looked at the arrow. He looked for a moment. Ellie got her plans done there. He got interested in the new ore. He asked her to come in or else she'll catch a cold. He opened the door, looked at his own house and thought that the house is a total mess. The smell of alcohol was strong as well. He directed her to a way to sit. He said he has to clean up for his surprise visitor. It was cleaning. Ellie started thinking that there are people who want Duke Schuetz to go down, and Waybrock's condition can be a good opportunity for them. She understood that they were the ones who caused him blindness in one eye and also they were planning to cause him in the second eye as well. And she can't let his visionary get worse. She saw medicine on the table. She took it into her hands and noticed the color of the medicine. She found it suspicious. Waybrock opened windows and Ellie got chilled. He said she's quite a handful. He fired the woods into the chimney. He sat there. She thought if he's eating enough or not. She asked him if he has something to eat for her. He said he does not have anything to eat. She asked what does he eat then. He didn't say anything. She said that he should eat something and should stay healthy instead of drinking alcohol all day. She quoted a sentence that if you eat well today, you'll live well tomorrow. He said it's been so long since he has heard that. He said he had a daughter. She was pretty smart and beautiful. And she fell into the lake she was looking at. He said it's all his fault. He said he didn't tell her to stay away from the lake. He was not strict on her. She said that was not his fault. She said her mother passed away because of her. She was not exactly an upstanding citizen. She just didn't want to justify what she did. It was bad, but she did it for her daughter. But if she heard her blaming herself for what happened with her mother, she would say that it's not your fault. If Waybrock's daughter could see him now, she would have said the same. They both looked at each other. We can see Ellie is trying to free Waybrock from his past guilt. She is trying her best. Let's see what will happen in next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.